Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is you're watching. Could even be through the night. Who cares? Welcome to the Cheltenham Festival 2021 preview podcast with my two special guests. And I am delighted to welcome along a man who made a profit of something like £1 million points to level stakes over a 10-year period. I want quite 1 million, but something like 300 points with his value bet column on sportinglife.com. Former colleague of mine in the office, and some good times back in the day, including a trip down to Paul Nicholls' yard probably about a decade ago. Scoop, Ben Linfoot. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, JD. A lovely introduction there. I do remember that trip down to Ditchy. It was a golden era for Nicholls back then, wasn't it? With big bucks and masterminded and Carter being paraded. So
I think you might have taken my photograph next to Denman, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, there you go.
I'm sure it's still on your mantelpiece.
It probably is. There's actually right in front of me, just over your head at the moment, is the front page of the Racing Post from the day after he won the Gold Cup, which says demolition. But that was for the past. Dan's our other guest, Dan Barber, Timeform jumps editor, and of course racing TV star pundit as he is these days, or not till some people on social media, but he's gone from a Cheltenham preview podcast to somewhere like Barbados at the moment.
Yeah, this is going well, JD. You've asked me to try and sort this background out, and I quite like the current one actually. I feel like I'm sunning myself, and lockdown's nowhere to be seen. I will work it though, JD. I'll have the right one soon.
I think you must be spending too much time in bed though in Barbados with Mrs. Barber, because you ain't got much of a tan there, pal.
No, it's very true. It's very true, and I shouldn't really be wearing a jumper as well.
No.
Are you napping Barbados books, Dan? Is it a link to your bet of the week?
If I was that computer savvy, it might be something that's subtle, yeah, but unfortunately not. This is just like watching your granddad try to use an iPhone or something, I'm afraid.
Yeah, is it going to blow up?
I'm sorry, JD. I wish you could have introduced me in a similarly positive way. I wish I'd have been able to record such profits as Ben, but I'm afraid you'll have to make do with me.
Yeah, well, we'll put up with you just for the next whatever it'll take to do this. And we don't quite know actually how long it's going to take, so we might even be cutting this call and redoing another one and refusing it together. But that's all part of the editorial magic. Let's crack on. 4 days of Cheltenham 2021. Not quite the Raw this year. It'll probably be a little round of applause, as it will probably for the Gold Cup winner as well. It'll be really, really strange in that respect. But in other respects, namely, there will be some bankers going, there'll be some that get sunk, and there'll be a few big price winners. It will be as you were as far as Cheltenham festivals go. Let's concentrate on the Grade 1s to start with. We'll have a peek at the handicaps and the shoulder races a little bit later on. But starting chronologically with the Cheltenham non-Raw ahead of the Supreme. And let's have a look at this one in a bit more detail. And of course, appreciate it heading the market 13 to 8-ish at the moment, with most firms second in last year's bumper. A couple of demolition jobs in Group 1s at Leopardstown this time around. Home and hosed from one or two of the pundits I've heard talking about before the off in this one. Where does this stand in the plans of you two? Let's start with you then, Dan.
Yeah, I was asked to write an article for the social media team at Timeform last week, and it was which fav do you want to be against most strongly? And so by definition, you're looking for something that maybe didn't come to you instinctively, which are often the best bets. But the more I looked, the more I thought, well, I had this in the back of my mind that Appreciate It might be the obvious candidate, and I've nailed my colours to the mast, so I'm sort of stuck with opposing him, really. I mean, my angle, and I'm not a massive ground exponent at all. I'm not one of those who thinks, he can only show his form on good to soft, or he can only show his form on good to firm, that sort of stuff. But I do think it changes the dynamic of a race, and he's never raced on anything as quick as I suspect we'll face on the first day of Cheltenham. He's been doing it on soft and heavy. He looks more of a stayer at the trip to me. That's my reading of him. He looks more like a Champagne Fever than a Duvan or even a Vator. And you could probably put Classical Dream in that. It was more of a speed horse than a staying horse. And I think it's quite a difficult task for his rider. He's a brilliant rider, of course, Townend, but he's got to make sure he goes hard enough to bring his stamina into play. But if he goes too hard, he's going to leave himself short for the finish. And without having nailed my colours to the mast, apart from opposing him with anything I really want to back against him. I thought there was mileage in maybe Soaring Glory each way because he's very solid. It's good quality handicap form. We know the history of horses that have won or run well in that race coming to Cheltenham. No wins, but numerous good placed efforts. The likes of Get Me Out of Here, My Tent or Yours. Kalashnikov was just chinned. And I think the key point with this race for me is it has to be a substandard Supreme, because at the start of the season, Fernie Hollow was the main talking horse for this. And we've lost him. And we've also lost the main British Hope, who looked like being the main British Hope, who was Dusart, who saw off Soaring Glory when they met earlier in the season at Newbury. So I don't think it will take as much winning as usual, which is why I think Soaring Glory will be bang there, even if he ran to a rating that wasn't as high as a few of those Betfair hurdle winners that have gone before.
If they do go off hard, Ben, as they're taken to doing in the first race of the festival, everyone trying to get off to a flyer, is Metier perhaps your idea of somebody who's going to be able to grind it out at a lickety-split sort of pace and still be full of running up the hill?
He's a contender, isn't he? The way he travelled in the Tolworth, he's a horse from the flat. He's got flat speed. It could be a crucial weapon against Appreciate It. In the Supreme, it is a substandard Supreme, I think, like Dan said. And with that in mind, you can sort of see why I Appreciate It is 11-8, but I do want to take him on as well. It's just Willie Mullins was saying at the start of the season he thought he might be a 2.5 miler. Then he obviously lost Fernie Hollow to injury, and Appreciate It sort of stood in for him over 2 miles and has done so well. But you do think he might lack a gear over this trip, and it's just finding one to take him on with. Soaring Glory would be my idea of the one as well. 7-1, obviously travelled so well in the Betfair hurdle. Looks like he's got all the credentials for this race. We had a story on site last night from John Sheriff saying that he might not run, which can't understand. I mean, why would you not run him? It's a wide open Supreme. He's got all the tools you want to win it. I don't know if it was a red herring or what, but
it's not the Grand National, is it? It's not like say we won't want to risk him in the National. It's just a Supreme.
Exactly, and there was even the old social runner thing mentioned. You know, the owner won't be there, but surely it's not a social runner if you're 7-1 for a Supreme. You've got a winning chance. So he'd be my idea of the bet if he turns up. I think Metier's chance as well. One at a bigger price that I like is Kescon Risk, who's been beaten by Appreciate It this season, but I think he will improve significantly on better ground. I think Judge O'Brien's looking at the Ballymore for him, but if he did turn up in the Supreme with a bit of good in the going description, off a strong gallop, I think he might close the gap on Appreciate It, and might be one to consider each way.
I've got to say I do like Appreciate It, but I think he's plenty skinny enough at 13-8. That would be my take on the race, but I think he's clearly a worthy favourite. But there is plenty of chat about Metier. What about Ballyadam? Sorry?
11-8, he's best in the village.
11-8.
He's really short now, yeah.
You're talking him down all the time here, Ben. By the way, are you able to adjust your volume up slightly? If you can, that would be great. Just a bit more. Slightly muffled. If Dan's in Barbados, you sound kind of on the moon, maybe at this stage. With a bit of a Houston, we have a problem marginally. Keep pumping it up if you can. Third time lucky, by the way. If he turns up for this, we're not sure yet. And I think Dan Skelton's still recently been saying, I don't think he's nailed his colour to the mast with this race or the counter yet. Which one would you be taking, Dan, if you were third time lucky's trainer? And has he got a chance in this if it was this one?
I'd probably go for this. As I've stressed, I think it's a weaker race than normal. Not the fault of the race. It's the fault of those that aren't taking part because of injuries. And I suppose it doesn't really matter to some degree. I thought he was a bet non-runner, no bet each way for this, 33s, 40s, not long ago. But the Skelton's record in the county is such that he looks an ideal type. But the key thing for him, whichever of the two he goes for, he'll probably have to run to a similar rating anyway to win either off his handicap mark. But it's the idea for me that the only time he's running a proper race so far where they've gone an end-to-end pace was the Champion Bumper last season, and he did best of the British horses in finishing fourth. I can see him. I just don't. I mean, there was a silly race at Cheltenham where For Pleasure nicked it, I thought. And then there was a silly race at Musselburgh where Donald's horse Bareback Jack crawled around in front, and then third time Lucky blundered at the last. So I do think he would be a runner in this, but it appears that the County is their preferred option from what I've been hearing.
Okay, I think we've done the Supreme. Let's have a look at the Arkle. And by the way, thanks to those of you who are watching this and are therefore helping to contribute towards some fundraising for Rawdon Cricket Club. And I know some of the Rawdon lads are saying this is their banker of the week in Shiskin, who's showing up on my screen at the moment as 11 to 10 on from Energumene at 2 to 1 and then 13 to 2 All Mankind, 14s bar that trio. Shiskin, obviously last year's Supreme winner, hugely impressive travelling and jumping displays in both the Wayward Lad and the Lightning at Doncaster to win unextended. Banker of the week, when we certainly haven't seen the best of Energumene yet. Could he be banker material for you, Ben?
Well, this is the race of the week, isn't it, guys? The Sporting Life Arkle Trophy. I think it's a fantastic renewal. Two top class novices. I mean, how often do you see two 160 plus novices running a Grade 1 at Cheltenham in March? It's pretty much unheard of. I certainly can't think of another occasion that it's happened. It might well have done. It's very tough to choose between the two, isn't it? But I think Energumene's chase form is stronger. It was obviously a fantastic time last time when it matched up so well with Shackleton at Leopardstown. He beat a Grade 1 winner by 10 lengths in Franco de Port. He's just improving all the time and looks a formidable chaser. And I look at the odds, and he's slightly bigger than Shishkin, isn't he, at around 9 to 4. And I find it very hard to split them. But if I was going to back one of them, it would be Energumene, just on the basis that he's got stronger chase form and he's a bigger price. I do acknowledge that he jumps out to his right a little bit. It doesn't concern me too much, I must admit. And I just think it's going to be an absolute cracker. I hope the two of them are jumping the last together.
Dan, I mean, Captain Guinness, I'm not sure if you put him up last year on preview night. I certainly did, in whichever hurdle race he was running in, and that escapes me without having it written down. But I just was so impressed with the way Energumene sort of readily pulled clear of him at Naas back in January. It looks like he's got a real engine and is at the moment still in that could be anything category.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, so much of this race rests on the tactical angle for me, and I suppose the jockeyship as well, because there's a potential, more than a potential nuisance. We know which way All Mankind will be ridden, and when they rode him like it last season, he got completely dismissed by Goshen in the Triumph Hurdle. I have this feeling that Cheltenham isn't going to be for All Mankind. I can see him, his low jumping, meaning that he makes an early mistake. I'm not saying he'll tip up, but I can see him getting out of rhythm. And I can imagine him at Energumene getting the run of it to some extent. But I'm just a massive fan of Shishkin. I think he's probably the most exciting horse in training, even more so than Envoy. And to win a Supreme against a horse that is now single figures for a champion hurdle in Abracadabras, despite getting knocked sideways at the second last, then getting caught behind horses, he then made the headway. And it's one thing getting alongside, he then was able to see it through as well. So I think he's a phenomenal talent. And if All Mankind can serve a purpose of getting to, say, halfway, and Energumene's had to do some work to see him off by then, I sort of feel it might have softened him up enough to leave him vulnerable to Shishkin. But I very much doubt I'll be having a bet in this race at this stage. I mean, if you wanted to play the distances, maybe. I mean, the scenario where Shishkin wins, I don't see him scrambling home by a head. I think he'll win convincingly because the race has been set up for him. But as it stands, JD and Ben, I've not partied with a penny, and I don't think I will for the Arkle. I'll be the Sporting Life Arkle, might I add, and looking forward to watching it. I think it's an absolute smasher. Interestingly enough,
we'll give the Sporting Life another plug there as well for you, Ben. Interestingly enough, I saw an interview with Dan Skelton where he said that he sort of obviously clearly didn't want to concede defeat before the race kicks off, but he said if we are going to get beaten in this race, the first horse that comes by us will be Energumene, and then it's whether or not Shiskin has got its kick, left to get by that one. But he clearly thought that Energumene was going to be more able, if you like, to lay up with the pace, I think, and that Shiskin would be coming from off it.
I think that's about right. All Mankind, he's got some engine, hasn't he? But he does tend to clobber one. I mean, he made a mistake at the second last at Warwick, didn't he? Quite badly in the Kingmaker. I mean, he just will not get away with that in this race. And they're such good jumpers, the two at the top of the market. I do think it's a 2-horse race, and every time I say that, the third one goes and wins. But
thing is, normally, if you've got a race of this shape and you're looking for something each way, but he's the absolute opposite of an each way horse, isn't he, All Mankind? Because you don't want the 7-4 that he finishes place, or the 7-5, not a second.
Yeah, shades of Harkon and Banjo in an RSA back in the 90s. You remember that was a 2-horse race and won by Brief Gale for Josh Gifford, and of course shades of Corto and Denman in 2010 when Imperial Commander came sweeping by. Anyway, I am going to come down on Shiskin, but I think I am very, very, very worried about Energumene, I've got to say. Ben, obviously your value bet is Energumene, and Dan, you're coming down with Shiskin. So, yep, if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, nothing to add really. I wouldn't be betting him at all. I just think he's a very exciting horse.
Okay. Champion Hurdle then feature, of course, on day one, and we have the mare Honeysuckle 9-4 favourite, the defending champion and mare Epatante 7-2, and Goshen at 4s, and it's double figure prices. The rest, now we were both down very, very sweet on Goshen. I remember at last year's preview night, and I was actually hosting a Cheltenham afternoon over at Huddersfield Town on the afternoon of the Gold Cup day, and having a real good time of it, I've got to say. And Goshen was obviously, I was dancing and singing and all the rest of it when he was coming around the home turn before it all went pear-shaped. And it sort of did, didn't it, towards the earlier in the season, I should say, for him. But then came back with a real bang last time. Has he got what it takes to make this step up? Is this a fairly weak renewal of a champion hurdle if Epatante is not the horse she was after what we saw at Kempton, or is she?
I don't know if it is weak, because you've got two very, very good mares there, and the geldings have got to give £7 away, and we've seen Annie Power Epatante prove just how lethal a sex allowance that can be. I swear I've not recovered from that Goshen thing. It's one of the most brutal scarrings I've ever had. I was like so confident. I'm not a bullish person at all. It's not in my nature, but I was so certain he was the best horse in the Triumph last season. And it was the massive high, like one of the last legs in a lucky 15 or something, and to the crushing low as he hits the floor. But I do think there was a real element of him getting back on track last time. You can pick holes in that form, of course you can, but what do you rate it? I mean, he beat Song for Someone, who hasn't run a bad race in ages, by a mammoth margin. And just thought, I think you can tell with this horse, he's one of those Goshen, you can tell from the way he's going through his race when he's on it. He was still tugging at the second last in the Triumph, for instance, and I thought there was an element of that with him at Wincanton. They didn't ride him as aggressively as they have done. He sort of was happy to get a lead. It'll be a similar scenario here, and that's one thing to definitely mention, the fact that Silver Streak looked a different horse for a positive ride at Kempton. Is he going to go forward as well? Goshen's normal tactics to be aggressive. There are others in there, aren't there, that are liable to be forcing the pace. I just find it's a really hard race. I mean, I think there's such a range in terms of pricing up 5 of them, the first handful in the betting, that I just couldn't be confident either way. Epatante's a 7-4 chance on last season's form, probably. On Kempton, she's a 7-1 chance. Goshen's 4-1 at the moment. If he's in the same form as a Triumph, he could be a 9-4 chance. If he's the same Goshen at the start of the season when he's running on the flat, he's a 9-1, 20-1 chance. So, again, another tough race for me.
And I mean, what are your feelings on it? And Honeysuckle, let's bring you in on that, because she, although I've had 1 or 2 people saying she's exposed at the head of the market, she's not really, is she? Because she still keeps finding a couple of pounds more and a couple of pounds more with these performances.
And she's unbeaten, isn't she? She's 10 from 10. So it's hard to say if we've seen the best of her yet. She's a fantastic mare. There's two fantastic mares in here with Epatante as well. And I do think that it's going to be very difficult for any gelding in the race to give them both £7 and win. Goshen obviously has bounced back onto the scene after his win last time. I think it'll help him. There's bags of pace in there. There's loads. I mean, Dan was saying there's Silver Street, there's Honeysuckle, there's Goshen, there's Jason the Militant who likes to go forward. There is a lot of pace in this champion hurdle. I think it's going to be a key factor. You look at last year and Epatante won off it was a good even gallop, wasn't it? They went a bit quicker in the Supreme than they did in the Champion. And she won with a turn of foot up the hill after travelling well. If she can utilise that again, I think she's the one they've all got to beat. And, you know, Nicky Henderson's taken Bivadere out. I think the vibes are pretty strong that he's got her back where he wants her after Christmas. She was obviously below form at Christmas. And if she's in the same sort of nick she was 12 months ago, and the race is run how I think it'll be run, I think Epatante is probably the one to beat. But there's a few ifs in there, and Honeysuckle's a huge player. I have it between the mares. And Epatante, she was 2-1 after Christmas and pretty much twice the price now. I think it's probably a fair bet.
Okay, are you nailing your colours to the mast then, Dan?
This would be a real small stakes race. I'm sitting out the Arkland. I'll be having buttons on this. I might, and maybe it's part blind loyalty, I might have a small win-only bet on Goshen. I was, a few weeks ago, thinking that I'd back Silver Streak each way in the hope that the field cut up, but Jason the Militant, as Ben said, is on the scene now, and he does nothing but front run. So he doesn't look the each way angle that I thought he might have been. So Goshen, small bet win only.
Okay, and I'm not going to desert him either. I've got to say, I'm still hugely impressed with him, and I just think if anything he's going to beat either of the mares, then he's still got untapped potential. So Goshen for me. We've got 4 Grade 1s, of course, haven't we, on the first day. So let's have a look at the Close Brothers Mares Hurdle, as it is these days. 6 in a row for Quivega, of course, in the past. And Willie Mullins' benefit, isn't it? 9 out of 13 renewals he has won. And surprise, surprise, he has the favourite here in Concertista, who's around about the 5-4 mark. She was second in the Grade 2 Mares Novice at 66-1 2 years ago. And of course, won it last year by 12 lengths as a 9-2 chance. She's a worthy favourite, I would have said. It's hard to argue with that. But with Roxana still very likely to be in the field, particularly if there is some significant rain between now and then, according to Dan Skelton, who's been there and done it. It's no done deal, this, is it, boys? Dan?
No, I wouldn't say it's a done deal at all. I mean, she has really impressed me. That was a Razi like, wasn't it, last season? That midfield to burst in clear as she did. She looked a bit of a freak, and I don't think she'd have been out of place trying to take advantage of a mare's allowance in a champion hurdle. But Roxana has already proven that she can mix it with the boys in the top staying races. She's got that form behind, which looks the best staying form on offer, Paisley Park and Time Hill. And apart from those two, Damned Company's a runner for me as well, and she's the biggest price of the trio. I think I'd sooner back her each way. The chasing debut didn't really teach us anything. I don't think Cornerstone Lad's taken to fences. It was a match. She survived an early mistake to win. Then she's unseated. But she was a fast progressive mare last season. It culminated with the Cheltenham handicap win. She looked then that she was going to be one of those mares that will be a regular fixture in graded races. And maybe we're getting a slightly bigger price because of what's happened over fences the other week when she unseated. But if she'd have gone here straight from the profile she had last season and would have had a spin over hurdles, I don't think she'd have been the price she's now. I didn't think I'd be putting her up at all, but the more I looked at the race, the more I thought there might be a bit of juice in her, because obviously the favourite is very, very short.
Okay, Damned Company then. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree actually. Obviously, the Coral Cup win last year, and I think if there's one to beat Concertista, it's her. Roxana, I think she'd be running in the wrong race. I think she's a miles better horse over 3 miles. You look how close up she finished at Ascot, behind Time 11 Paisley Park, and I think now on 3 or 4 occasions she's proven she's better over 3. And looking at the ground and the weather forecast, and I think she'd be better off in the stayers with the £7 allowance and try and beat the big 2. But I don't think she would win this race again if she turns up. Concertista looks fantastic, and Don de Caponi's a worthy rival as well. So I'll probably sit this one out, but I'd agree with Dan on the selection.
Yeah, I'd probably go with a selection with the favourite, I've got to say, on what I've seen. But it'd probably be a race to watch from my point of view. But yeah, just to say, on the record, Dan Skelton has gone on the record as saying we are fully committed to the mares with Roxana, and hoping for rain between now and the festival. Ben clearly not happy with that decision.